Good afternoon, patriots. The old man here. 12/15/2024. Today, what I want to talk about was inspired. Actually, this was part of my thesis or series, but kind of due to GMC 9451, he pointed out a video to me that actually, at the end of the day, I can put a name to the organization, if you will, or the name of the process they're trying to put into place. I could never put a name to it, but I could see all the different parts. And when you can put a name on all the different parts, to me, it makes a big difference. It was very enlightening. First of all, I'll also suggest to you to watch a video on YouTube. The gentleman's name is Richard Jeffs. Richard Jeffs. The title would be Stakeholder Capitalism. Excuse me. That's the name of the process that we're looking at, or the we now have capitalism, we have socialism, and this is a hybrid, if you will, of the New World Order. And this is more or less what they have in mind for all of us. Honestly, I think we dodged a major bullet, hiring, you might say, Donald Trump as their president for the second time. There's many ways I can go with this. I think I'll just start off with stakeholder capitalism is a term that was developed by Klaus Schwab. And, if you're in YouTube land and you're doing any investigating on what the hell's been going on lately and what's going on with money and gold and silver and politics and whatever, I'm sure you've run across the name Klaus Schwab. I don't think I have to tell you who he is. If you want to know more about him, tons of videos out there on him, doing a better job than I could, and I don't want to waste your time, elaborating on who he is. But what he did do, though, is he established what's been called the New World Order, or WEF, the World Economic Forum. I guess that's part of the New World Order. And all this crazy shit we've seen, of which really has come to a head since the pandemic. But even you can go back into not so much the Clinton times. They didn't really elaborate on it too much, but you could see the direction they were pushing us in. And in fact, the first person I've ever heard say the term New World Order was Bush Sr. And I thought to myself then, because I was always paying attention to these guys, I knew there was something up, I just didn't know what it was. And when he mentioned New World Order, I thought, what the hell is that? And back then, the internet wasn't like it is today. Getting information wasn't that easy. I suppose I could have went to a library or whatever else. I just didn't know any kind of significance. I just wondered, what the hell is he talking about? And, they've been working on it ever since. I'm sure they were working on it before that, but they're just bringing it to the forefront of a movement that they've been working on for years. I guess they figured true socialism isn't going to work, so they need to bring in something else and work on a different platform. And this is basically what it's evolved into. But parts of that New World Order is the DEI. You've heard about ESG. That's all things that they're using to control business and using to control finances. Basically, if you've got a large corporation and you're not complying with these, they can cut off funding. BlackRock's a big part of that. BlackRock funds a lot of projects, and they're basically telling you, you ain't getting no money from us unless you do what we tell you to do. That's where you get places like Target saying stupid shit and standing behind, men and women's bathrooms and that. And, you had to know, the CEO of that company had to know that that was basically political suicide, and that there'd be a hell of a kickback on that. And there was. And, they lost, I don't know, the first time around, I think they lost like $20 billion. And the second time around, it was more like $30-40 billion. The first time around was during the Kenyon's administration, and the second time around was here not too long ago, maybe 3 years ago, during the Biden administration. But, you got to wonder, well, that's political suicide. Why in the hell would you ever say it? Well, they were forced to comply, if you will, and to come out and make that statement, with, the promise that, whatever you lose is fine, but we need to get this out there, and we'll make up for it with funding and funneling money in your direction. If not the company, the CEO is getting paid off, and all the other administrators, they're all getting paid off, if not the company. Investors might lose their ass, but they don't give a fuck about investors. All they care about, the big boys, all they really care about is themselves. But, so much of this is to bring about political divide, like the ESG. That's all about economics and, environmental, and planting it in kids' heads, and that's what they're mostly targeting, is kids in college, and now they've even brought it down to high school kids. It's so, if you're a conservative in high school, it's very hard to make it through the day with all the bullshit, and especially if you've got a strong mindset that they're wrong and you need to tell them they're wrong, it's very difficult to do. During especially this last little bit of the Biden administration, they really put the hammer down with the FBI and everybody else. Even parents that went to PTA meetings and, was complaining about the bullshit, like the, what do they call them? Idiots dress up like women, and they're going to preschool, or not preschools, but like kindergartens and that, and doing drag queen show. There we go. That's what I was trying to look for. Doing drag queen shows, and anybody that complained about it got on the FBI's watch list and was harassed by the FBI and basically threatened to stand down. And some even went to jail. Not many, but just enough, and it hits the media. And that's another thing, is talking about the media. They own basically all the billionaires that follow this stakeholder capitalism. They own all the media. So in any kind of war, the main thing is to control the media. Back in the day, it was the printing press, and today the printing press is basically non-existent. These newspapers aren't really much of shit anymore. Most of them went belly up. But now you've got all your mainstream medias, and that's why Donald Trump, almost right out of the chutes after he got elected the first time, went right after the jugular vein of the media. And I'm telling you, he's made them so irrelevant that they're just bleeding money now. I can't believe they're making any money at all. There's these billionaires that own these organizations and trying to get this stakeholder capitalism going, or get it to the end game. They have to be just pumping tons of money into those organizations. They can't be making money anymore. I just don't believe it. But what's interesting is during his, even leading up to his first election, Trump used Facebook and Twitter, and especially Twitter, to get his point across and to get things rolling on his end. And that it blindsided him totally. All these ultra progressives, they just don't have a clue to what's going on, and he smoked them in that realm. But they made damn sure in the second time around that he wasn't going to be able to use them platforms. And honestly, at the end of the day, most will think that Trump lost the election. Well, primarily, the only reason he lost was because plenty of us got out there and voted for him, but was the fact of election fraud, and he needed to expose election fraud too. And honestly, I think it was just a pause. They knew they were going to lose. The Patriots and Trump knew they were going to lose the second term, but it also gave 4 more years for the Americans to wake up. A lot of eyes have been opened in these last 4 years. A lot of eyes were opened in the first 4 years. And all those people tend to talk, and they talk to their friends and get around the coffee pot in the morning at work and shoot the shit for a while. And that all runs downstream, or after work, and they get together and have a beer and, talk about all the bullshit going on in the world. And now, like at the beginning of Trump's first administration, when he started talking about the media and the lies, that, a lot of people didn't believe it. I'm like, wow, damn, I can't believe he said that. But I knew it was true. But you got to think about how many people woke up to that even in his first 4 years, and then give it another 4 years where more and more people's eyes were opened every day. Major communities that have been, if you will, oppressed by those that claim to be trying to give them freedom was the exact opposite. The Democratic Party, and actually I don't want to pick on the Democrats because a lot of people identify as a Democrat, but actually they're a moderate or a conservative. So let's say the progressives, the left wing of the Democratic Party. So anyways, let's say the progressives really just cut off everybody. They're just so far left, and their ideology they think is the right thing, and what you think doesn't matter at all. You take Hillary Clinton when she called us the deplorables. I think she thought she was going to browbeat us into, oh my God, I don't want to be called a deplorable. I better conform. Well, I'll tell you about conforming. And the thing about it is most other countries, if you look at them, from the West anyways, I'm not going to, well, at this moment, not really referring to the East, but most other countries have conformed. Your Western capitalist countries have conformed to the WEF and to New World Order and ESG and everything else. And if you think about it, you can see it. We talk about it at work. The majority of us can see it, that there is no way in hell going to electric cars is going to work, not with our infrastructure the way it is today. And there's no way in hell wind power and solar power is going to work. It's just not reliable enough. And there's so much of the country that solar's never going to work. We've got tons of windmills out by us, and every damn time I drive by them, the majority of them ain't even running. So what's the deal with that? Honestly, at the end of the day, I think they're letting you believe that they've got an idea and they know it's not going to work, but they want you to believe they've got an idea and it's going to work. But the end game is that there's like, what, 8 billion people in the world, that 6 billion of them need to go away. And if we can quit building, by the skies of, well, if we don't do this by that time, get rid of carbon and all of this, we're all going to die, and people believe in all this climate change bullshit. And you might be sitting out there thinking, well, it's not bullshit. Well, let me tell you something. Number one, if you can remember the Mount St. Helens, when that blew up in one day, more CO2 and other bullshit was put into the air than humans have managed to put into the air over time since the Industrial Revolution in one day. And we survived. And the worst of the worst was I believe it was Britain. That cloud went over and hung over Britain for a while, and they had, a couple weeks of pretty dark, nasty weather. And that was the worst of it. So, if you think that us humans can make that big of a difference, I think you're mistaken. I think this is all bullshit. The world can and will sustain what we have going on today. Now, are there better ways, or can there be better ways? Yes, and we need to move towards better ways. I agree. But we're not at the point of throwing away gasoline and diesel engines and other forms of making electricity and heat. Just throw all the carbon away today and move to something different. It's just not time. Eventually it will be time, and we'll find that like solar panels are the most ineffective way of trying to make energy, especially in the north. But also windmills, for what you expend energy and carbon-wise to build a windmill, it would take like 25, 30 years just to break even on the amount of carbon that you've created to make them. But yet its lifespan's only 15 years. Huh? What? That doesn't make sense, right? If it takes 25 years to get back to neutral or net zero, but yet the lifespan's only 15 years, that means the whole thing is a lie. It's a freaking lie. The thing is to get you away to the point where you cannot return to the diesel or gasoline engines, because it's all been destroyed, and we're moving on, and then at some point everything collapses and billions of people starve to death, I think is exactly what they want. You may think that no human wants that. Well, you got to remember, these people represent pure evil. Pure evil. Tom Logano refers to them as evil central, or the Davos crowd. For years he referred to them as the Davos crowd. Now he refers to them as evil central. And boy, I think he hit it on the nose when he gave them that name. Right on the nose. That's evil central. They don't care about you. They don't care about you at all, or anybody, or death or life. They don't care. Doesn't matter. They're the only ones that matter. Everybody else is in the way. And you all need to be serfs to the WEF, or World Economic Organization, because they know better, and that's the ultimate central powers in control. That's what they want, one world power, and at that point they can completely control what you do. And if you want to know their ideal of where the world should go, and a lot of people in this world are going to be forced to go into this direction, otherwise starve, would be China. In China, you got a social score, and if you're working here, let's say you're working in a factory, you got to live within walking distance of the factory, whatever that is. They don't want you to own a car. They don't want you to burn their resources, what it amounts to. You got to remember going back, and I just thought of this today, is the car was the ultimate freedom. Prior to the automobile, you had a horse and buggy. Well, by God, you ain't getting far with that in one day, or even 1 week, you ain't getting far. Okay? The vehicle was the ultimate freedom. I don't really know the history of other countries as far as that goes, but in the United States, that was just huge. Huge, 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 huge. And people, even during the Depression, to believe it or not, were buying cars. Ford was pretty successful during the Depression, mostly because he could build them the least expensively. And like I said, even during the Depression, when a lot of people didn't have nothing, people were buying cars. At least the middle class were buying cars, and above were buying cars. That is the ultimate freedom as a vehicle. At the end of the day, they don't want you to have a vehicle. They don't want you to have freedom. They want you to sit home or work, and that's it. And they're also going to tell you what to eat. We're going to get you to eat tofu. You're not going to eat meat and beef and whatever else. That's all creates a lot of carbon and CO2. And I think they believe half of this shit they spoke. But at the end of the day, their thought process is that there's only so much natural resources, and the 8 billion serfs are burning up them resources at an unsustainable level, and they all need to go. A good percentage of them need to go. And at the end of the day, if they've got a couple billion people left, they can just serve the capitalist or the stakeholder capitalist, and that's what it amounts to. I encourage you, because he really elaborates on it and puts a lot of points together that you may have heard of before, but you just didn't really tie these things together. He really helps tie this together and put a bow on it at the end of the day. Really makes a lot of sense. He made Richard Jeffs made a documentary. Now, I'm not the type to be able to sit down and watch a documentary. I've got a lot of what I call squirrel factor. I get halfway through something like that, I see a squirrel, and that's it. I go off onto something else. But he's got at least a couple different interviews out there that are about 30 minutes long. And boy, does it really condense everything, and you can get the highlights, and that's basically what I'm looking for. Give me the highlights of your thesis, and let me run with that. And that's basically what I did. I watched a couple different interviews, and really helped to tie things together and put a big bow on it. And I encourage you to do the same. I think it's a big help. I think a lot of people that watch this will say, "Oh my God, no kidding, now I see it. Now I see it." And that's another thing I think Trump and the Patriots have done is, got people to get out there and do more research on their own. I encourage everybody, no matter what I say on here, don't take it as the gospel. Take it as something to research. Either prove me right or prove me wrong. I don't care what you do. It doesn't matter. Either one's fine. At least you're out there. You're doing your own research. And honestly, to keep your wealth and to keep your freedom, I think that's what you're going to do. We're all going to need to do is keep doing research. In the past, I did my 40 I've always worked more than 40, don't get me wrong. But basically, I did my work for the week. That's it. I was trying to get ahead by having 2 and 3 jobs, of which I shouldn't have had to have. If they weren't trying to steal so damn much of my money, I wouldn't have had to have 2 or 3 jobs. But I've always had 2 or 3 jobs, full-time. Well, at least one full-time job and a couple part-time jobs. And just to keep ahead of the game. But I'll tell you what I never did. I never did any research how to keep that wealth. All I was concentrating on trying to make money, not keep money. And I think one of the best analogies I've ever heard, and I believe it was Benjamin Franklin that said a penny earned or a penny saved is a penny earned. And boy, is that the truth. In actuality, done right, there's always should be something left over that you can pass on to your family in the future. And think of generational wealth, that after 3 and 4 generations, how much wealth. And not to say that, let's say your grandkids or great grandkids or on down the road will never have to work, but let's say that after 3 or 4 generations, they've got enough money that they can actually really invest in a big company, maybe build their own company, and make the world a better place. Just by generational wealth and passing it down. And with the way things are today, you'd be lucky to get out of this alive, with a couple bucks in your pocket. Excuse me. A lot of people don't even have money for a funeral, for Christ's sakes, when they pass, not alone leaving generational wealth. And I think that's possible for all of us. I don't care who you are, how old you are, how young you are, all through savings and networking together. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care what color you are. We've all been divided by religion and color and age and everything else for years. And in reality, the enemy is not your next door neighbor, no matter what religion, what color, or anything else. The true enemy is big government. At the end of the day, central planning doesn't work. It never has, it never will. We need small government and let individual people move everything forward. One of the big things with the pandemic, if you notice, they worked on shutting small business down and pushing it all toward big business. Back when I was a kid, we got all these superstores, Walmarts and everything else, back in the day. Your local hardware store basically had everything you wanted. And then you'd have a small grocery store, a local small grocery store that would have all the groceries you needed, whether it be food or whatever, these basic staples, let's put it that way. And you go back even farther, it was a general store, and the general store had both. They had food and all your hardware to, keep things going or to build a house or whatever. But now it's all big corporations. You go back in the day, too, even back when I was a kid, and that ain't that damn long ago. Yeah, I know I'm old, but Jesus. Back in the day when we was kids, everybody was a small farmer. Some even had a second job. Some had, some decided to do farming as a full-time job. Some decided that a lot of guys around here even, they might have 20, 40, 50, 60, 80, 100 acres, and they work full-time at General Motors too, so they put their 40 in at General Motors. Back in them days, not a lot of overtime. So they'd put their 40 in at General Motors, and then they would come home and run the farm. Also with that, your food was always local. We weren't producing food 1,500 miles away and then trucking it in. If you're doing that and it's affordable, that just tells me that you're getting a poor quality food. And if you look into it, that's exactly what you're getting, is poor quality food at a cheaper price, just to keep that industry going. I would much rather see all that food become more local and more local farms, whether they're producing vegetables, and something like that, or better yet, they're producing meat, whether that's hogs or cattle or sheep. I think sheep get a bad rap. I think that can be a very good, very profitable way to raise meat. But that's another story we'll get to someday. But what this is all leading to, and has been set in place, and actually is so far past the point of no return, especially after the last 4 years with Biden, that with the Biden and Harris administration, that we're heading towards a great reset and nothing's going to stop it. I know that sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, and basically what I've talked about over the last 3 videos sounds like a lot of doom and gloom, but all I really want to do is kind of set you up and see where we're at, and give you time to do some research on what I'm talking about. And at the end of the day, I'm going to elaborate on what I think is extremely positive. I seen nothing positive going to the end just before the election. I wanted to believe that Trump could win, but I was afraid they had enough cards in their pocket that they were going to push through a loss again, and that would have equaled nothing good at all. I could see that going sideways on many different fronts. The one thing about the U.S. population, the one thing we got in America, a lot of people don't give it enough credit, is the American spirit. But the question is, where does that American spirit come from? That comes from the Constitution. All these other Western countries and even your Eastern countries, they have no Constitution, and most of them are being ruled by dictators. But the U.S. having the U.S. Constitution, we always got something to fall back on. And when all else fails, we go back to the Constitution. I think maybe even in the first quarter of this coming year, you will see the Great Reset come into play. Whether it all happens at once or it just starts and you really start to recognize it in the first quarter and comes to full fruition by the end of the year, I'm not sure how that's going to play out. We'll see. But with a continuation of the Biden/Kenyan administration, that would have been just nothing but ugly. Hard to say how bad it would get or where it would go. But with Trump and the patriots running the show and getting this back down to, small government, just instead of, so many government jobs, people are just taking and not adding any value. Now, there's a lot of government jobs that are not that. I mean, we got prison systems and that. We need those guys. I'm not saying that. There's even Christy works in a government position. Her husband does too. And they provide a service that I think we need. But so many government jobs that are buried, or bureaucracy that is buried in the bowels of the system, they're just taking and they're not giving anything. Quite often we are referred to as consumers, and honestly, the term is correct. Now they're using it derogatorily, that we're consumers and that's all we are, and that's where the WEF is getting. The World Economic Federation is just, we're consuming, and we need to go basically at the end of the day, because we're not providers. They are the providers, and we are the consumers, and there's too many consumers. But I'll agree to this point, though, that we need to be more producers and producing more than we consume. Of course, we're always going to consume. That's how you stay alive. But when you produce more than you consume, you can create great wealth. And that is what the country is going to need here. I think we are going to see the Great Reset. And honestly, that is exactly what Trump needs. No major changes can be made unless there is a Great Reset. We need to bring this back out of the ashes. And I believe that's what we're going to get. This system as we know it today will be totally different. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a good way. It needs to get rid of the bureaucracy. And all the central planners need to be cut out of it. and it need to let the American people and the entrepreneurs build from there, and by God, we can. Great things actually were built during the Depression. Things that could never be built because of cost today, and infighting and government and everything else. I think, if we get to a small government and very little bureaucracy and get a lot of these idiots out of our way, what we can build is just amazing. Unfortunately for the rest of the world, that is totally tied up with all this WEF, and their world leaders are totally on board and is going to sell them down the river. That's not going to end well. Now, how's it going to end? I'm not sure. It can be really ugly. I think you're going to see a lot of people uprise, and then depending on the power of the individual country, how they're going to deal with those uprises. In some cases, I think the powers that be are going to be lynched, like the good old days. And in some cases, they're just going to be run out of the country. But at any rate, it's got to change. The one thing is we can be the world leader and show the world how great America is and how great the system is, and go from there. I think that's what I got for today. I'd like you to like, subscribe, and share. And please leave a comment. And even if you don't feel like leaving a comment, put in what state and or what country you're from. That'd be kind of cool. See where everybody's from. I appreciate it, guys. Thank you. Good night.